What does it actually cost to purchase a property in the city of Toronto? This is also applicable to anywhere in Ontario. Three things we're going to go through today are the cost to purchase the property, so when that offer is accepted. We're going to go through the cost to close on the property, so those closing costs before taking possession. And then we're going to go through the costs once you own the property on a month-to-month basis. I'm Michael Ouzas. I'm a realtor in the Greater Toronto area. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below on what you think about these closing costs as we go along. And if you ever wanted a more in-depth look into the costs in the budget that you're looking at, I'd love to walk through those with you. If you ever want to book in a call with me, click on that first link in the description down below whenever you're ready. We're going to break these up into two different elements. We're going to talk about the costs from once your offer is accepted to closing, and then we're going to talk about the costs on a monthly basis after you own the property. Once your offer is accepted, the deposit is the first amount of money that's due. Typically, that number comes in around 5% in the city of Toronto. Now, while it doesn't have to be 5%, it could be less or more, especially depending on market conditions. Deposits are either due with your offer, especially if you're in a multiple offer situation, or you want to make your offer a little bit more attractive to the sellers. The other option is they can be due within 24 hours of having an offer accepted. There is a third option where the deposit is due at a future date, although that's not a very common scenario, especially in the city of Toronto. You're also going to want to make sure that that amount of money is accessible the moment that your offer is accepted. In most transactions, the deposit is held by the listing brokerage's trust account. If the property is for sale by owner, then a lawyer would typically hold it in their trust account. Now, there are some additional acceptance expenses that might come up after your offer is accepted. Three of the most common are a home inspection, a status certificate, and your lender might require an appraisal to be done. On average, a home inspection costs around $500, an appraisal somewhere between $300 and $500, and a status certificate, if it's not provided by the seller or the listing agent, would be $100. Next up, we have closing costs, which are also part of the purchase breakdown. The biggest one would be the down payment. Now, your deposit is deducted from the down payment. The deposit shows your good faith in the transaction. Your down payment is typically what's required by the lender when it comes to financing. So for example, if you are putting a 20% down payment on a property, which is conventional, then your 5% deposit would be deducted from the 20%, and that 15% would be due when you meet with the lawyers before closing. Your lawyer will send you an email and let you know what your final number is due on closing, but this is something to consider, that your deposit is different than your down payment. If you're putting the minimum 5% down on a property that's $500,000 or less, then your deposit will cover the entire down payment amount. The next closing cost is the land transfer tax, and this one also doubles if you're in the city of Toronto. There's two types of land transfer tax. There's provincial and there's municipal. Toronto, as of now, is the only city in Ontario that charges a municipal land transfer tax. That might change in the future, but for now, only in Toronto you pay double land transfer tax. If you're a first-time buyer in the province of Ontario, you'll get two rebates when it comes to land transfer. The first one is for provincial, where you get a $4,000 cap on your rebate, and the second one is for municipal if you are buying in the city of Toronto, and you'll get a rebate of $4,475. These two adjustments are made on closing, so they'll be deducted from your final closing costs. If you're not putting down 20% onto the mortgage, then there will be something called mortgage insurance. One of the most common is CMHC, and if CMHC applies to your loan, then there'll be a 8% tax on the loan applied to your closing costs. There's other costs to also look out for when you do close the property, and those are lawyer fees, title insurance, and if there's any adjustments due on closing. So for example, if the seller has paid the tax for the whole year and you take possession 4 months in, then you'll have to pay the seller back those 8 months, which they've already paid for taxes. All that comes down when the lawyer does the adjustments due on closing. So for this example, I took a $600,000 property in the city of Toronto. That's your typical entry-level point for a one-bedroom. Now, there are one-bedroom units that are over $600,000, and there are one-bedroom units under $600,000, but I just thought $600,000 was a pretty generic price point for a one-bedroom condo in the city of Toronto. On that $600,000, your 5% deposit is $30,000, and that is due with the offer or within 24 hours of the offer being accepted. Now, if you're getting a home inspection, I'm going to price that at $500. If you're getting a status certificate, we're going to price it at $100. And if the lender requires an appraisal, we're going to price that at $300. Your total due on offer acceptance, or within that, basically that first week, if you're satisfying the conditions, will be $30,900. For your closing costs on a $600,000 purchase, your remaining down payment is $5,000. Now this is tiered, and it's 5% down from 0 to 500,000. Anything from 500,000 and $1 and up, then it's 10% on the difference between 500,000 and 1 million. Anything over 1 million is 20% down automatically. Land transfer, $8,475. You do get a $4,000 rebate as a first-time buyer. Your municipal land transfer for the city of Toronto, $8,475. This one comes with a rebate of $4,475 if you're a first-time buyer. Other costs to consider, and these are estimates. We have the lawyer at $2,000. For the CMHC provincial tax, that's just over $1,800. I also added in $2,000 for closing costs, just in case there's any adjustments to be made, and $500 for title insurance. Now again, these are just estimates, but I want to give you a bit of a ballpark of what those closing costs will look like just before closing day. Now let's get into the monthly costs and what that's actually going to cost you on a month-to-month basis. The first thing we're going to calculate is the mortgage remaining on the principal balance. So you purchase for $600,000, and if you don't put down the full 20%, then the mortgage insurance gets added to your mortgage balance. For $600,000 with the minimum down payment, your mortgage remaining is $564,600. Mortgage insurance on that will be about $22,600. Your total mortgage balance remaining is $587,200. That is your loan on the property, and that's what you'll be paying your monthly payments on. Now to calculate those monthly payments, I used a 5% interest rate with a 25-year amortization and a monthly payment. You can go to any mortgage calculator online and plug in some numbers and go with more current rates as what they are at today, and it'll give you a better idea of what that monthly payment costs. In Toronto, our property taxes are lower than the rest of the province. I estimated that at $2,700 a year for a unit of that size, which brings us to $225 a month. You're also going to need insurance on your property, and I used $420 for the year, which comes in at $35 a month. I used a $500 a month condo fee to just keep it kind of average. So your total before any utilities would be $4,175, including the condo fee. Now, typically your condo fees will include some of the utilities. The most common one that we see as extra is hydro. I priced hydro in at $80 a month. And again, this is all dependent on your personal usage in the unit. And then I also added internet at $100 a month. You can find things that are much cheaper. You can also find things more expensive. Just depends what kind of internet TV package you would add on. And since most people add it on, I'm adding it on here. That's an extra $180 a month for both. The total on a $600,000 condo purchase in the city of Toronto is $4,355 a month. There you have it. There's your breakdown on the cost of a $600,000 condo in Toronto. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below on if it was more expensive or less expensive than what you thought. Also keep in mind, these are ballpark numbers and they're not exact figures. And if you do want something a little more dialed into a property that you're looking at, book a call with me and we can jump onto a buyer consultation and walk through some of these numbers, or we can just talk about your situation and what you're thinking of doing. I'm more than happy to help. I'm Michael Ouzas. Thanks for watching.